Neither did I, Harper.
But I think you were meant to fall here.
Survival rule number 1. When your abusive ex shows up out of nowhere at a fancy gala, you run. Rule number 2. Watch where you're running. I broke rule 2. That's how I ended up fleeing, tripping, flying, and landing in a complete stranger's lap, who just looked at me like desperate women fell on him every day and said, with infuriating calm, "Well, this is new." I wanted to disappear, wanted the floor to swallow me whole, but then I looked back and saw Derek approaching, and suddenly, the arrogant stranger's lap seemed like the safest place in the world. Chapter 1. The Fall.
Sign it, and everything changes.
This story of cosmic embarrassment started in a much more innocent way than the disaster it became. I was working at a charity gala in Manhattan, in one of those places with crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than entire apartments, with champagne circulating on silver trays like it was water and dresses worth more than my annual rent. Sarah, my best friend, had looked up the prices of some of these dresses just to make me feel even more out of place. I was wearing a dress borrowed from her that was a bit too big in the shoulders, and I spent half my time adjusting the strap that insisted on sliding down while I sketched with graphite. My easel was set up in a strategic corner of the ballroom, my fingers already stained with charcoal because I always forget to use cleaning wipes and end up looking like I just came out of a coal mine. But the portrait was turning out good, really good. For one glorious moment, I completely forgot where I was, and there was only me, the paper, and the magic of transforming lines into people. The woman from the couple I was drawing asked, with enchanted eyes, "This is incredible. How do you make it look so real?" I smiled, because this is the part I really love about my work. I like to capture the details people don't realize show who they are. The way you look at each other, for example. The husband laughed, clearly flattered by the observation, and commented that I made it seem like magic. I responded with the automatic modesty of someone who still doesn't completely believe in their own talent. It's just graphite and lots of practice. The magic is all yours. For exactly 3 minutes and 42 seconds, I was happy. I was completely in my element. And then I felt that look. Heavy, familiar in a way that made my stomach turn, and all the blood freeze in my veins. There are certain looks you recognize without even seeing who owns them. Looks that carry memories you spent 8 whole months trying to erase from your mind. I turned my head slowly, as if the slow movement could somehow change reality. It was Derek, on the other side of the ballroom, looking only at me with that smile I'd learned to hate. That smile that clearly said, "I found you, and you know you won't be able to escape." My heart raced so fast I thought it would jump out of my mouth, and my breath caught in my throat. Suddenly, the beautiful ballroom transformed into a trap, and I was the cornered rat. The thought screamed loud in my head. No, how did he know I'd be here? I tried to keep my composure. I really tried. I excused myself to the couple with a voice I wanted to be firm but came out completely shaky, saying I needed a moment and would be right back, which was a blatant lie because I had absolutely no intention of returning. I just wanted to get out of there before he got close enough to touch me. I started packing up my materials with my hands shaking so much I dropped a brush, bent down to pick it up, and slammed hard into the easel. Derek was walking in my direction with that predatory calm he always used, like he had all the time in the world and knew I had nowhere to go. I grabbed my bag in a hurry, left half the materials behind because it didn't matter. Nothing really mattered except getting out of there as fast as possible. I started walking quickly toward the side exit, grabbing a champagne flute from a passing waiter's tray, just because my hands needed to hold something so they wouldn't shake so much. I looked back to see if he was following me, which was an absolutely monumental mistake. The basic rule of any escape is don't look back when you should be looking forward, and it was exactly in this moment of absolute brilliance that I tripped. There was a side lounge area, with elegant sofas and lower, more intimate lighting. A man was sitting alone on one of the sofas, legs stretched out in a relaxed way, phone in hand, and the posture of someone who was there physically, but not really interested in being there. His hair was styled a bit too impeccably, and the suit he wore clearly cost a fortune, and I simply didn't see his extended foot. Physics was absolutely cruel. My foot caught on his, my body completely lost its balance, and the champagne flute flew in a golden, perfect arc through the air. And I, Harper Castelli, portrait illustrator and current world record holder for embarrassing situations, fell directly into his lap, not on the floor next to him, not braced on the sofa arm, directly into his lap. The champagne spread across his impeccable suit and stains I knew very well would never come out. The silence in the lounge was instantaneous and absolutely total. That specific type of silence that happens when something so absurd occurs that no one around knows exactly how to react. And there I was, practically sitting on a complete stranger's legs, with my hands braced on his solid chest, in a completely desperate attempt to balance myself that failed miserably, with my face only a few inches from his, and my eyes wide with pure horror. He didn't move, not a single muscle, as if this was just another Tuesday in his life. When our eyes finally met, his were dark brown and completely impossible to read, analytical in a way that made me feel like I was an insect under a microscope, and he simply said in a low, calm voice that had a slight touch of something that could be amusement, "Well, this is new." My brain simply stopped functioning. All synapses went on collective strike. The only thing I could do was babble like a complete idiot. I, to which he responded by arching a single eyebrow, just one, with a precision that should be absolutely illegal. Breathe. Complete sentences are optional, but they help quite a bit. I processed very slowly exactly where I was. In a complete stranger's lap. A stranger who was absurdly handsome, which made absolutely everything even worse. I finally managed to focus on the completely ruined suit. Your suit. He looked at his own suit as if he were simply checking the weather forecast. It was a good suit. I blinked, confused. And he, with a seriousness that could be completely real or could be pure sarcasm. $3,000 ago. $3,000. My eyes widened even more, which I didn't think was possible. 3,000. He tilted his head slightly to the side, studying my reaction with almost clinical interest. Do you want me to repeat it more slowly, or is shock part of the comprehension process? The rational part of my brain finally came back from vacation screaming that I'd been sitting in a complete stranger's lap for too long. I'll pay for the suit. He made a sound that could be a laugh if it weren't so incredibly contained. With what, exactly? The answer came, out of my mouth before it could go through any kind of mental filter. With money, eventually in installments. Many installments. The corner of his mouth lifted so minimally I almost missed the movement. How many installments exactly are we talking about here? 10? 100? My absolutely pathological honesty answered before common sense could intervene. 400. He repeated the word, and this time there was definitely amusement in his voice. Ambitious of you. I lifted my chin with all the dignity I had left, which was very little. I'm an optimistic person. And he, looking directly into my eyes in a way that made something very strange happen in my stomach. Clearly very optimistic, considering you're still sitting on my lap. Reality finally hit me with the force of a high-speed train. I was still sitting on him. My hands were still braced on his solid chest, and I could feel the warmth of his body through the wet fabric. I tried to get up too fast. Sarah's too big dress caught on something, probably on my own lost dignity, and I failed spectacularly once more. I'm sorry. The dress caught on something. He remained completely still, making no move to help me. Do you always make entrances like this? Or am I special somehow? I finally managed to untangle the damn dress. It was an accident. He looked at his watch so casually it should be considered a crime. Usually accidents don't involve sitting on complete strangers and laps for 40 seconds and still counting. I stopped fighting with the dress completely. You're counting the time. His voice took on a slightly dangerous tone. Are you interested in knowing the final number? Indignation finally gave me enough strength to get up. I stood with zero dignity remaining. I'm interested in getting off your lap. He stood too, unfolding from the sofa with a grace that absolutely should be illegal. And he was tall. Very tall. I had to look up in a way that hurt both my neck and my pride. The door is right over there. The floor is right below you. Feel completely free. I adjusted the dress with my hand still visibly shaking, lifted my chin in an absolutely pathetic attempt to recover some dignity. Are you always like this with people? He seemed genuinely curious. Like what, exactly? And I, letting all 8 months of accumulated frustration come out at once. Unbearably superior. Like the whole world exists just to serve you and all other people are just an inconvenience. The silence that followed was different, heavier than before. He analyzed me for real now. No longer as the accident that fell in his lap, but as a real person who had just challenged him. And are you always like this with people? I frowned. Like what? He took a step closer to me. Completely disastrous and surprisingly combative for someone who was sitting on my lap literally 10 seconds ago. I crossed my arms firmly. I'm very good at multitasking. And then something unexpected happened. He almost smiled. It was an absolutely tiny movement at the corner of his mouth that completely transformed his face. Apparently, you are. It was exactly at this moment that Derek found me. I felt his hand before I could even see him, grabbing my arm with a force I knew very well would leave a bruise later. The blood froze completely in my veins again. I turned my head and there he was, with that completely controlled smile that didn't come close to his eyes. "Harper, finally found you. We need to talk now." I tried to pull myself from his grip. Couldn't. His grip only tightened more, completely on purpose. "Derek, let go of me now." He ignored me absolutely and completely. "You're being way too dramatic, like you always were. Come with me. Let's sort this out somewhere more private." A voice cut through the air, low and sharp as ice. "She just told you to let go of her arm." Derek looked at the stranger for the first time for real. "This is absolutely none of your business." The stranger didn't move a single millimeter, but something in his presence completely changed, transformed into something dangerous, but perfectly controlled. "You're hurting her arm on purpose." "That seems very much my business, actually." Derek, always too confident in his own imaginary superiority. "And who the hell are you?" And he, with a calm that was much more threatening than any scream could be. "I'm someone who understands the word no perfectly well, apparently much better than you." I took advantage of his distraction, pulled my arm with all the strength I had, and finally managed to free myself. "Derek, this ended 8 months ago. Accept it already." Derek gave me that specific look, the one I knew too well, full of completely veiled threat. "Harper, you know very well this isn't over. You know it doesn't work like that between us." The stranger took a calculated step, positioning himself subtly but clearly between the two of us. "It works exactly like that, actually." She said, "No, you leave now. It's a pretty simple concept to understand." Derek measured the stranger for a few seconds, clearly realizing he wasn't going to win this battle there, not at that specific moment. "This is far from over, Harper." And the stranger, with that absolutely perfect timing, it ended exactly 30 seconds ago. I counted the time. Derek finally left, but the look he gave me before leaving clearly promised that this really wasn't over. I realized I was visibly shaking. Hands, legs, absolutely everything. I tried to hide it as best I could. The stranger watched me in silence, and the tone of his voice was completely different now. "Are you okay?" I reassembled the pieces of my pride. "I am. Thank you so much. You really didn't have to do that for me." He arched that eyebrow again. "Technically speaking, I also didn't have to let you use my lap like it was an armchair, but here we are." I almost really laughed for the first time. You can actually be kind and irritating at the same time, as if revealing a great secret to me. It's a very specific talent I have." The silence that followed was strangely comfortable, in a way that shouldn't be possible between two complete strangers. I asked what was really bothering me. "Why did you help?" He hesitated for a fraction of a second, and I saw something genuinely real in those impossible eyes. "Because people who can't understand the word no deeply irritate me, and because you looked like you really needed someone on your side, even if that someone is just an arrogant stranger with a completely ruined suit." I looked at him for real, trying to understand who the hell this man was. "Oh, you're very strange." He almost smiled again. "I just got called strange by the woman who literally fell in my lap. That's quite ironic." I corrected immediately. "Irritating. You're irritating." He was clearly enjoying himself now, but also kind, apparently. "You're the one who said so." I didn't let it go. I said kind and irritating at the same time. The irritating doesn't just disappear because the kind showed up too. He smiled for real this time. "Small, quick, absolutely devastating. That's fair of you." I collected the remains of my scattered dignity. "I really need to go now, and I'm truly sorry about your suit." He put his hands in his pockets, completely relaxed. "You can send me the detailed bill for the 400 installments." I blinked. "But you don't even know my name." He tilted his head slightly. "And you don't know mine either." I touched a nerve. "Touché." I grabbed all my things and left, feeling his eyes fixed on me until I finally completely left the ballroom. It was only when I got outside on the street that I realized my heart was still beating too fast. But this time, it wasn't just because of Derek. He stood there, staring at the direction she'd gone, still mentally processing the complete chaos of the last 5 minutes. Callum appeared out of nowhere, with that annoying smile already installed on his face. Who was that woman? Emiliano didn't look away from the door. "I don't know." Callum let out a loud laugh. "You let a complete stranger sit on your lap and didn't even ask her name." Emiliano finally looked at his brother. "She fell in my lap." "She didn't sit on purpose." Callum moved closer, his eyes practically shining. Emiliano Vega not knowing the name of a woman who clearly interested him, that is something completely new. Emiliano adjusted the completely ruined suit. "She didn't interest me in any way." Callum pointed directly at his chest. "You're literally covered in champagne on your suit, and you were smiling. You never smile at anyone." Emiliano turned to leave once and for all. "Good night to you, Callum." Callum shouted loudly behind him. "You're going to look for her." Emiliano didn't respond at all, but he also didn't deny the accusation. Sarah almost spit all her coffee out. "Let me see if I've got this right. You literally fell in a man's lap." I sank completely into her cozy sofa. Literally. She was absolutely amazed. "And you stayed sitting on his lap." I covered my face with both hands, for much longer than I'd like to admit out loud. She pulled my hands away from my face forcefully. "How long exactly?" I murmured so low you could barely hear it. He was counting the whole time. I think it was about 40 seconds or more. Sarah literally screamed loud. 40 whole seconds in a complete stranger's lap. I defended myself as best I could. The damn dress caught on something, and I was completely in shock. She simply didn't accept the excuse. "And then Derek appeared out of nowhere and the ruined lap guy defended you." I nodded. "Yes, that's exactly it." Sarah grabbed my shoulders firmly. "Dear friend, who the hell is this mysterious man?" I let out a deep sigh. "I have absolutely no idea. Didn't ask his name." I was too busy wanting to die of absolute embarrassment. Sarah threw herself dramatically on the sofa. "But was he at least handsome?" I paused way too long before answering. "Infuriatingly handsome." She jumped back up. "This is extremely interesting." I raised both hands in protest. "It is not interesting. He was completely arrogant, superior, sarcastic to the extreme." Sarah crossed her arms with that expression of someone who knows everything. "But he defended you from Derek, and made you really laugh, from what you just told me." I tried to protest somehow. "That doesn't change absolutely anything about the fact that—" She cut me off without mercy. "You're going to run into this man again. You can bet on it." I laughed at the impossibility. "New York City literally has millions of people, Sarah." She smiled with that absolute certainty. "And you provably have the worst luck on the entire planet when it comes to embarrassing situations. I'll bet $10 on it." Later, already home alone, I stared at the corner of my tiny apartment. The old project folder was there. The little monster who learned to stay. I opened it carefully, looked at all the illustrations I'd done. The little monster who kept hiding who he really was under his shell. I ran my fingers lovingly over the yellowed pages. Someday someone will publish you for real. Someday. I closed the folder carefully and put it back in its usual place, completely unaware that the man from the lap and the ruined suit was actually the owner of one of the largest and most prestigious publishing houses in the entire country, that he had all the necessary power to transform impossible dreams into concrete reality, that our paths were completely destined to cross again in ways I could never imagine. Not yet, at least. Chapter 2. The second encounter.
You're mooring it today.
You're not planning to fall on me again, are you?
The universe is a comedian. 1 week after the most embarrassing night of my life, I was kneeling on the dusty floor of an independent bookstore in Brooklyn, completely surrounded by stacks of illustrated children's books. My notebook was open on my lap, full of disorganized notes about watercolor styles versus digital techniques, and I was doing that embarrassing thing I always do when I'm too focused, muttering to myself as if inanimate objects could hear and respond. I held a book with delicate illustrations in pastel tones and spoke softly to myself. "This one uses watercolor. It's pretty, but it's not exactly the right tone I want. This other one is too digital, completely loses the soul of hand-drawn lines." I turned another page, completely immersed in my private world of colors and textures. "You know the books don't talk back, right?" The voice came from somewhere above me, masculine and infuriatingly familiar. My entire body froze instantly. I knew that voice, knew the tone of controlled sarcasm, the calm cadence that hid amusement. I turned my head very slowly, almost afraid to confirm what I already knew. Emiliano Vega was there, standing right next to me, looking at me with that absolutely insufferable half-smile that seemed to be his default expression. Still kneeling on the floor between the piles of books, I could only say, "You again." "Me again," he confirmed, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. I narrowed my eyes with suspicion. "Are you following me?" "Yes, absolutely." The answer came too fast to be true. "I tracked you down to a neighborhood bookstore in Brooklyn, just to have the great honor of seeing you talk to inanimate objects. It's my favorite hobby on Saturday afternoons." Sarcasm. I rolled my eyes. What a huge surprise. He extended his hand to me in a gesture that could be considered chivalrous, if it didn't come with that amused expression. "You're not going to fall in my lap again this time, are you?" I completely ignored the extended hand, and got up on my own, adjusting the denim skirt that had ridden up during the time I'd spent sitting on the floor. That was one isolated accident. He withdrew his hand without showing any kind of offense. A 43-second accident, to be more precise. I checked the exact time afterwards. My mouth fell open. "You really counted the time afterwards? 43 complete seconds. A $3,000 suit ruined. An entire flute of Moët champagne wasted." He enumerated the facts as if reading a shopping list. I'm a very detail-oriented person. You're disturbing, I corrected firmly. I'm detail-oriented. He disagreed calmly. There's a significant difference between the two concepts. I crossed my arms over my chest. And what would that difference be? Disturbing implies some kind of purposeful negative intention, he explained as if giving a lecture. I'm just precise in my observations. Precise and irritating at the same time. I added the necessary addendum. You really like that specific word a lot, don't you? And you really deserve that word, don't you? He almost really smiled this time. That tiny movement at the corner of his mouth. That's fair of you. Emiliano looked around, carefully observing all the piles of children's books surrounding me on the floor. Children's books. Is this a genuine personal interest? Or are you secretly like 6 years old disguised in an adult body? I'm a professional illustrator, I answered with a dignity I tried to maintain. I'm researching different illustration styles. Something changed in his expression. A genuine interest that wasn't there before. An actual professional illustrator. Freelance most of the time, I explained, feeling that familiar insecurity rise. I mainly do live portraits at events. You saw me working on that before. Well, before you used my lap as an unplanned emergency landing. You mean, he completed for me. Are you going to keep reminding me of this forever? Very likely, yes. A strange pause settled between us. Emiliano broke the silence first. And do you illustrate children's books too, or just do portraits? I hesitated, because this was different. This was the real dream, the vulnerable part I didn't share easily. No, I don't do that professionally yet. It's a personal project of mine. Something I want to be able to do someday, you know? Tell me more about it. Why? The question came out more defensive than I intended. And because your eyes literally lit up when you mentioned it, and now I have a morbid curiosity about what it is. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. My eyes didn't light up at all. They did. Trust me, he insisted calmly. Now tell me about this project already. I let out a resigned sigh. It's a book, an illustrated children's book. The title is The Little Monster Who Learned to Stay. The story is about a small creature who's afraid to show others who she really is underneath her scary appearance, because she thinks everyone will end up rejecting her if they find out the truth. The silence that followed was different from all the others. Emiliano looked at me in a completely new way, as if he could suddenly see something far beyond the clumsy girl who had fallen in his lap a week ago. I own Vega Publishing. The words came out simple, direct. My brain completely froze. What? Vega Publishing House. He repeated patiently. It's a publishing house. We publish books. It's literally what I do professionally. I processed the information very slowly. You own an actual publishing house. One of the largest publishing houses in the entire country, to be more specific. The color drained completely from my face as reality hit me. I spilled expensive champagne on the owner of one of the largest publishing houses in the country, and spent 43 seconds sitting on his lap too, he added with that irritating tone. Don't forget that important part of the story. I'm literally going to die of embarrassment now. I'd much prefer you send me your project first before dying. I blinked several times. What? Your complete portfolio of work, he specified, and the pages you already have finished of this little monster. Send me all of it. Why would you do this for me? Because I recognize genuine talent when I see it in front of me. The answer came serious this time. And also because technically you still owe me a $3,000 suit, so you can consider this as an alternative form of payment. That's not exactly. He extended an elegant business card in my direction, interrupting my protest. The deadline is Friday this week. Don't be late. And then he simply left, walking out of the bookstore with that infuriating confidence, leaving me standing there holding the card as if it were made of pure gold. Sarah practically screamed when I told her everything later. The lap guy is the owner of Vega Publishing, and he wants to see my project, I confirmed, still kind of in shock. Harper, she grabbed my shoulders hard. You literally fell into the lap of your big break in life. Literally, I agreed with a crooked smile. This is pure destiny. It's the universe conspiring in your favor. This is cosmic embarrassment of epic proportions, I corrected with realism. Are you going to send him the project? I looked at the elegant card I held like it was a talisman. I am. I spent the next 3 entire days working frantically. I scanned all my best commercial work, organized everything into an impeccable digital portfolio, and finally, with my hands trembling with nervousness, I included 5 complete and carefully illustrated pages of The Little Monster. The dream of my entire life was now in the hands of a man I still couldn't completely figure out. A man who was irritating and kind at the same time, sarcastic but attentive, and who for some inexplicable reason had decided to give me a real chance. On Friday morning, very early, I took a deep breath and pressed send. Now I just had to wait. Chapter 3. Dangerous Territory.
I am so sorry, Mr. Vega.
3 days after hitting send, I received a direct and objective email. Monday, 2 p.m. Vega Publishing. Bring physical portfolio. E.V. No, hello, no, thank you for sending. Just orders in corporate format. Infuriatingly typical of him. Now I was in the intimidating lobby of Vega Publishing, faking a confidence I definitely didn't feel while gripping my portfolio folder so hard my fingers were turning white. The building was all glass and steel, minimalist in an expensive way, with receptionists who looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine and who looked me up and down with that silent assessment. The receptionist called upstairs and then indicated the elevators with a professional, empty smile. 23rd floor. He's waiting. Of course he was, because Emiliano Vega had probably never waited for anyone in his entire life. When the elevator doors opened on his floor, an efficient assistant was already waiting for me. Miss Castelli, please, follow me. We crossed a hallway with white walls decorated with framed book covers. All bestsellers I recognized, all published by Vega. My stomach tied itself in a tight knot. She left me in a conference room with an entire wall of glass overlooking Manhattan, a huge dark wood table, and leather chairs that probably cost more than my rent. I sat down, trying not to look completely out of place. Emiliano entered exactly 3 minutes later, punctual in an infuriating way, wearing an impeccable dark gray suit and carrying a tablet. He closed the door behind him and got straight to the point. No social pleasantries. Your commercial work is technically impeccable. Was that a compliment? It sounded more like a clinical analysis. Thank you, but that's not what really interested me. He opened something on the tablet and turned the screen in my direction. It was the little monster. My illustrations enlarged on the bright screen. My heart did a strange jump. He touched the screen precisely. I want the complete project developed. My voice came out thinner than normal. You're serious. I never say anything that isn't serious when it comes to business. The answer came firm. If you can maintain this level of quality on the remaining pages, Vega will publish. The floor seemed to disappear beneath me. I gripped the edge of the table. This isn't an elaborate joke, like sophisticated revenge for the ruined suit. He arched that eyebrow. I don't make jokes about business, Harper. But do you make jokes about anything? A dangerous almost smile. About people who fall in my lap, apparently. But we've already established that. He slid a contract in my direction. Deadline of 4 weeks to deliver the complete manuscript and all finalized illustrations. Weekly follow-up meetings. With me, with him, alone, regularly. 4 weeks. I swallowed hard. That's tight. You have half the work done, he pointed out. And proven talent. It's feasible if you dedicate yourself. And the weekly meetings? I personally supervise all projects that interest me. Something about the way he said this made my stomach turn. Do you have a problem with forced proximity? The word choice was purposeful. I knew it was. As long as it doesn't involve any more laps, I think I can survive. What a shame. He murmured so low I almost didn't hear it. What? Nothing. He pushed an expensive pen in my direction. Sign or don't sign. My hands trembled when I picked up the pen. The dream of my entire life was in 3 pages of legal document. I signed before I could overthink it and change my mind. The door opened without warning and a man entered like a hurricane of energy. Tall like Emiliano, but with an open smile that was the complete opposite of his brother's reserve. He stopped when he saw me, eyes widening. You're the lap girl. I felt all the blood rush to my face. He told you. Emiliano never tells anyone anything. The man approached, extending his hand. But I have my reliable sources. Callum Vega, older brother, and clearly more charming. I shook his hand, still processing. Harper Castelli. And he really told you. Not exactly. Callum threw himself in a chair with familiarity. But he came home that night with champagne on his super expensive suit and refused to talk about it, which told me absolutely everything I needed to know. Emiliano closed his eyes for a long second, visibly gathering patience. Callum, don't you have literally any work to do? I have tons of work, Callum agreed cheerfully. But meeting the woman who made my brother smile for the first time in years is obviously more important. I didn't smile. Emiliano cut sharply. You smiled, Callum insisted. Multiple reliable witnesses confirmed it. Welcome to the madness, Harper. You're going to need luck. Emiliano pointed to the door with silent authority. Door. Now. Callum got up laughing. But before leaving, he whispered loud enough for me to hear. He always gets grumpy when he likes someone. It's like his defense system. The door closed behind him. Awkward silence. Your brother is intense. I tried to break the ice. My brother is an inconvenient idiot. Emiliano corrected. I'll ignore absolutely everything he said. Even the part about you getting grumpy when you like people. His eyes met mine, especially that part. The tension in the air changed, got heavier. I looked away first. A whole week later, I was in Vega's lobby waiting for Emiliano to arrive for our second meeting. I was 15 minutes early because anxiety, mentally reviewing the new pages I'd brought, when I heard soft crying. I turned my head and saw a little girl, no more than 5 years old, alone near the waiting sofas, with tears streaming down her face and holding a worn teddy bear. I looked around. No adult nearby. I approached slowly, crouching down to her height. "Hi, sweetie. Are you lost?" She nodded, sobbing louder. "It's okay. We'll find your mommy." I used my softest voice. "What's your name?" Lily." The voice came out choked. "Lily is a very pretty name." I smiled. "And who's this little friend?" I pointed to the teddy bear. "It's Mr. Buttons." She squeezed the toy. "Mr. Buttons looks very brave. I bet he's taking care of you, right?" She nodded again, the tears diminishing a little. That's when I felt a presence beside me. Emiliano had arrived, but instead of greeting me, he simply crouched down too, getting to the same height as the two of us. And then something completely unexpected happened. His voice changed. It became soft, gentle, patient, in a way I'd never heard before. "Hello, Lily. My name is Emiliano. This is my building, and I'm very good at finding people. Can we help you find your mom?" Lily looked at him with big, wet eyes, still wary. He pointed to the teddy bear with impressive care. "Mr. Buttons seems to be a very good guard. Does he protect you well?" The girl nodded. "And then I'll make you a deal." Emiliano extended his pinky finger. "You, me, and Harper here are going to look for your mom together, and Mr. Buttons will help us be brave. Deal." Lily hesitated, but then intertwined her little finger with his. My heart did something strange in my chest. Emiliano spoke quietly into the communicator he always carried, giving clear, calm instructions. He kept his hand extended to Lily, who held it with growing confidence. In less than 3 minutes, a desperate woman came running out of the elevators. "Lily!" The girl let go of Emiliano's hand and ran. The mother picked her up, crying with relief, thanking repeatedly. Emiliano just waved that it was fine, that it was nothing. When the mother and daughter left, we were alone in the lobby again. I was still processing what I'd just seen. "You were sweet." The words came out before I could filter them. Emiliano tensed immediately. "Don't call me sweet, but you were," I insisted. "With her, you were kind and sweet." She was scared. He looked away. Scared children need calm, not corporate efficiency. I took a step closer. "You have a real heart underneath all that armor, don't you?" "The meeting is in 5 minutes." He cut off the subject, turning toward the elevators. "Let's go." He ran from the conversation, but it was too late. I'd seen the real man beneath the cold executive, and that changed absolutely everything. The following weeks turned into a strange and addictive routine. Meetings that started professional and ended in heated discussions about minuscule details. He was a perfectionist to the extreme, questioned every color choice, every expression of the little monster, every word of the text. "That shadow is too dramatic." He pointed to a drawing. "It's on purpose," I defended. "The little monster is hiding, but the reader needs to be able to see his emotions. The reader will see if they pay attention to the details." "Harper," he sighed. "Emiliano." I rolled my eyes, but there were moments where our hands almost touched over the sketches spread on the table, where he leaned too close to see a detail and I could feel his warmth, where our eyes met and stayed locked for seconds too long, where his breathing changed when I passed too close. "You're impossible." I threw the pen on the table after an especially intense discussion about the title font. "And you're too stubborn for your own good. Is that a flaw now?" He looked at me differently. Intense. Dangerous. I haven't decided yet. The silence that followed was charged with something electric, something unspoken that grew with each meeting, each almost accidental touch, each look that lasted longer than necessary. I was confused, completely confused. Was he cold or kind, arrogant or attentive? Why did I think about him when I should be working? Why did my heart race when I saw his name on my phone screen? And more importantly, why, of all the people in the world, did it have to be him? Chapter 4. The mother, the kiss, the chaos.
I'm gonna kiss you now. Unless you stop me.
My mother is going to be at today's meeting. Emiliano dropped the information casually as we walked down Vega's hallway, as if he were commenting on the weather. I stopped walking. "Your mother? Why?" "She likes to meet all the authors we publish." He kept walking, forcing me to quicken my pace to keep up with him. "It's a formality." "A formality," I repeated, feeling nervousness creep up my spine. "Great. Wonderful. I love formalities." He looked at me with that expression that could be amusement. "You're nervous." I'm not nervous, I lied blatantly. I'm just concerned about making a good first impression on my editor's mother, who happens to also own one of the largest publishing houses in the country. You're nervous, he confirmed with infuriating certainty. Before I could protest, he opened the conference room door, and there she was. Isadora Vega was exactly the type of woman I expected Emiliano's mother to be. Elegant in a timeless way, impeccable posture, dark hair pulled into a sophisticated bun, and dark eyes that assessed me from head to toe in exactly 3 seconds. Mother, Emiliano approached and kissed her face with genuine affection. This is Harper Castelli, the illustrator for the project I mentioned. Isadora extended her hand, the grip firm but cold. So you're the illustrator. The tone carried something I couldn't completely decipher, but that definitely wasn't warm approval. Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Vega. I kept my voice polite and professional. She turned to Emiliano, practically ignoring me. Emiliano, dear, are you absolutely certain this is the right professional for such an important project? The question hurt more than I'd like to admit. I felt blood rush to my face, but I kept my chin up. Excuse me, Mrs. Vega, but I think my work speaks for itself. Isadora looked at me again, this time with something that could be surprise at the direct response. We'll see about that, won't we? Emiliano noticed the cold treatment. I saw his jawline tense slightly, but he didn't confront his mother there in front of me. Instead, he opened the portfolio and began showing the work. Isadora examined each page with the critical eyes of an expert, asking technical questions I answered with all the professionalism I could muster, while feeling the weight of her judgment. The meeting lasted 45 minutes that felt like 3 hours. When it finally ended, Isadora stood and looked at her son. We need to talk later, dear. And then to me, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was interesting meeting you, Miss Castelli. When she left, the silence in the room was too heavy. She hates you, I murmured, still looking at the closed door. She doesn't know you yet, Emiliano corrected, but didn't deny it. Sarah handed me a generous glass of wine as soon as I entered her apartment that night. By your face, the meeting was horrible. His mother hates me. I collapsed on her couch. Completely. Harper, she met you for 5 minutes. 5 minutes were more than enough, apparently. I took a large sip of wine. She practically asked in front of me if Emiliano was sure I was the right person for the project. Sarah grimaced. What a charming woman. And the worst part is that I understand, you know? I sighed. She's probably seen hundreds of women trying to get close to her rich and powerful son. She's protecting him. But you're not like that. Sarah sat next to me, and Emiliano knows it. Does he? The question came out more vulnerable than I intended. He's so confusing. Sometimes it seems like he really cares about me. Other times it seems like I'm just another project on his agenda. Sarah gave me that knowing look. You like him. I don't. You like him, she insisted. And it scares you because for the first time in 8 months you're letting someone in again. I covered my face with my hands. I don't know what I'm doing, Sarah. Nobody ever does. She squeezed my shoulder. But at least this guy is worth the confusion. 3 days later, I left a particularly productive meeting at Vega, already past 7 at night. The building was almost empty, the late afternoon light painting Manhattan golden through the glass windows. I was checking my phone while walking toward the subway, when I felt that familiar and horrible sensation of being watched. I looked up and froze. Derek was leaning against the wall of the next building, arms crossed, waiting for me. You're working for him now. His voice was too calm, too controlled. My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. How do you know where I am? I always know where you are, Harper. He pushed off the wall, starting to approach slowly. You should remember that. Leave me alone, Derek. I took a step back. Leave me alone. He laughed without humor. You think you can just walk away? That you can replace me with some stuck-up rich guy? I didn't replace anyone. Anger began to override fear. I ran. From you. Because you're abusive and controlling. Derek moved closer faster, the mask of calm slipping. Choose your words carefully, Harper. He grabbed my arm, his fingers squeezing with purposeful force. And suddenly, I was back in that apartment, those horrible months, and panic rose up my throat. Harper. A voice cut through the air like a blade of ice. Take your hand off her. Now. Emiliano had come out of the building without either of us noticing. He was standing a few feet away, his posture relaxed, but his eyes absolutely deadly. If looks could freeze, Derek would be solid ice. Derek let go of my arm but didn't back down. This is none of your business. Everything that involves her is my business. Emiliano took a step forward, positioning himself between us. And I strongly suggest you leave now before I decide to call security and file a police report for harassment. Derek looked at me over Emiliano's shoulder. That look I knew too well. This isn't over, Harper. It ended 8 months ago. Emiliano answered for me, his voice still calm but with the promise of violence between the lines. "And if I see you near her again, it's going to end in a much worse way for you. That's a promise, not a threat." Derek finally realized he was at a disadvantage. He left, but the look he gave me promised this really wasn't over. When we were alone on the sidewalk, I realized I was shaking. Emiliano turned to me, his hands going to my shoulders. "Did he hurt you?" "No, just..." I looked at my arm where Derek had squeezed. It was already starting to turn red. Emiliano's jaw tensed dangerously. "Why didn't you tell me he was stalking you?" "It's not your problem." The words came out automatic. A defense built over months of having to deal with everything alone. "Everything that affects you is my problem," he said with such intensity I was left speechless. "Why?" The question came out in a whisper. He was silent for long seconds, something crossing his face, an internal battle I could see but couldn't decipher. Because I don't know exactly when you became more than just a project to me. But you did." My heart forgot how to beat. "Emiliano, I don't know how to do this right," he continued, the words coming out fast now, as if he needed to speak before changing his mind. "I'm controlling, cold, difficult to deal with most of the time, sarcastic, irritating, arrogant," I added automatically. He almost smiled despite the tension. "Are you helping or making my argument worse? You're all so kind." I took a step closer. "With lost children, and with me, when you think I'm not watching." The silence that settled was charged with so much tension the air felt too heavy to breathe. We were very close now, too close to be professional, too close to be just editor and illustrator. "I'm going to kiss you now," Emiliano said, his voice low and hoarse. "Unless you fall in my lap again and interrupt me." A nervous laugh escaped. "Was that a joke?" "It was terrible," he admitted, "but I'm nervous." "You get nervous." I couldn't hide the surprise. "Apparently with you I do." He moved closer slowly, giving me time to pull back if I wanted. I didn't pull back. His hand rose, fingers touching my face with a delicacy that contrasted with all the tension in his body. Slow, deliberate, as if he were memorizing every inch. And then he kissed me. It was soft at first, almost hesitant, a silent question. I answered by leaning closer, and it was like lighting a match near gasoline. He deepened the kiss, his other hand going to my waist, pulling me against him. And years of unresolved sexual tension, weeks of constant provocation. Everything exploded in that moment. When we finally separated, we were both breathless, my heart beating so loud I was sure he could hear it. "That was," I started, "better than 43 seconds in my lap." He finished with that almost smile. I laughed, still dizzy. "You're really going to remind me of that forever, aren't you? For the rest of our lives," he said with such certainty my stomach flipped. "If you'll let me." Was that a proposal? That was a promise. He kissed me again, softer this time, and for one perfect moment, nothing else mattered. Not Derek out there, not the problems, not the complications, just the two of us. What neither of us saw was Isadora Vega leaving the building through the side entrance, stopping when she saw us embracing on the sidewalk. The expression on her face was impossible to read, but definitely wasn't approval. And Derek, watching from across the street, taking a photo with his phone before disappearing into the crowd. The complications were just beginning. Chapter 5. Everything falls apart.
Never touch her again.
Isadora Vega found me alone in the hallway of Vega Publishing 3 days after the kiss. I was waiting for Emiliano to come out of a meeting, distracted looking at the framed book covers on the walls, when I heard her voice behind me. "Miss Castelli, how convenient to find you here." I turned too fast, almost dropping my bag. "Mrs. Vega. Hi, hello, good morning." She didn't smile, just watched me with those dark, analytical eyes that seemed to see through all my defenses. "I know exactly what you're doing." My stomach sank. "Excuse me, don't play dumb." She took a step closer, her voice low but cutting. "You're not the first talented young woman who's tried to use my son as a shortcut to success, and you probably won't be the last." The words hurt like a physical slap. "Mrs. Vega, I'm not..." "I saw you two." She cut without mercy. "On the sidewalk. Together. Emiliano is an intelligent man in business, but surprisingly naive when it comes to women who know exactly which strings to pull." I felt tears of anger and hurt burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You don't know me. I know the type." Isadora crossed her arms elegantly. "Stay away from my son, for his sake, for the company's sake, and honestly, for your own sake too." She walked away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and poisonous words. I stood there in the empty hallway, shaking, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. When Emiliano came out of the meeting 5 minutes later, I forced a smile and lied, saying everything was fine. I didn't tell him about the confrontation. I couldn't. Vega's new title launch event happened the following Friday in an elegant hall in downtown Manhattan. It was one of those sophisticated corporate events where editors, literary agents, and authors mingled with champagne flutes and conversations about sales numbers. Emiliano had insisted I go as his guest, not just as a contracted illustrator. Sarah had lent me a simple but elegant black dress, and I'd spent a whole hour trying to make my hair look professional instead of chaotic. "You look beautiful," Emiliano murmured when he saw me, his hand finding mine naturally. "You're obligated to say that." I tried to joke, but Isadora's words still echoed in my head. "I never say anything that isn't true," he corrected with that seriousness of his. We were talking with a group of editors when I felt that horrible, familiar sensation creeping up my spine. I looked at the entrance to the hall, and there he was, Derek, wearing a suit, looking completely respectable, carrying a large envelope. My blood froze. Emiliano, but it was too late. Derek was walking straight in our direction with determined steps, and before anyone could react, he was in the middle of the hall, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm sorry for the interruption." Derek opened the envelope, pulling out photographs. "But I think everyone should know exactly who Harper Castelli is before doing business with her." The entire hall went silent. Horrible, absolute silence. He started showing the photos, all taken out of context, from parties and events from years ago when we were still together, manipulated to look like something they weren't. This is the woman who uses men to climb the ladder, who approaches rich executives and fakes professional interest when she's really after status and money. Each word was like glass being stabbed into my chest. I looked around, all those important people looking at me. Isadora in the corner, her expression confirming everything she'd said, the whispers starting. "She did this to me," Derek continued, his voice falsely hurt. "And now she's doing it to Mr. Vega here. Someone needed to warn them before—" "Security!" Emiliano's voice cut through the air like an icy blade. "Get this man out of here. Now!" 2 security guards appeared immediately, but Derek wasn't finished. "You don't know who she really is, Vega. You don't know—" Emiliano took a step forward, positioning himself completely between me and Derek, and when he spoke, his voice was so cold the air seemed to freeze. "I know exactly who she is. A talented illustrator who had the courage to restart her life after fleeing an abusive relationship. And I know exactly who you are, a pathetic, desperate man who can't accept that he lost. So I suggest you leave now before I add a restraining order to your public humiliation." The guards grabbed Derek, starting to drag him out while he shouted more accusations that got lost as the distance increased. Emiliano turned to the still silent hall. "The event is over. Thank you all for attending." Then he turned to me, his voice softening completely. "Come on, let's get out of here." We ended up in his office. The door closed, the silence heavy. I was in shock, shaking, the humiliation still burning like acid. "I can't do this to you." The words came out fast, desperate. "Your mother hates me. My past is a complete mess. You're the bravest person I know." Emiliano interrupted firmly. "And Emiliano, no." He moved closer, his hands holding my shoulders. "You fled an abusive man alone, started over from scratch without anyone's help, pursued a dream even when everything said it was impossible. You think I'm going to let you walk away because of malicious gossip from a pathetic ex." Tears finally fell. "Your mother said I'm using you." She said, "My mother is wrong." He wiped the tears from my face with his thumbs. "Well, she's going to have to learn to really know you. Like I learned, like Lily learned in 2 minutes when you helped her without expecting anything in return. But all those people saw, those people don't matter." He tilted my head up, forcing me to look in his eyes. "You matter. We matter. And I'm not going to let a violent man destroy this. I'm not going to let fear and shame steal what we've built. I'm scared," I admitted in a low voice. "I know." He pulled me into a tight embrace. "But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." We stayed like that for long minutes, until my breathing calmed, until the shaking stopped. "Stay," he said against my hair. "Please, stay with me." And for the first time in 8 months, I let someone hold me while I cried. I stayed. What I didn't know was that after taking me home that night, Emiliano went back to the company and made 3 very specific calls. To lawyers who specialized in restraining orders, to private investigators, to people who ensured that men like Derek never approached their victims again. And when Derek received the legal notice 3 days later, along with compiled evidence of years of harassment that could ruin him legally and professionally, he finally understood. Emiliano Vega protected what was his, and I had become his the same way he had become mine. No more games, no more threats. Chapter 6. The little monster found its place.
I didn't just survive. I finally stayed.
3 months later, I was standing in the middle of Manhattan's most famous bookstore, holding a book with my name on the cover. My book, My dream transformed into real pages that people could touch and read. The Little Monster Who Learned to Stay had been published by Vega Publishing the week before, and the success was immediate. Brilliant reviews, bestseller lists, schools reaching out asking for author visits, children sending drawings of the little monster they'd made. I had done it, really done it. The launch party was happening around me, full of editors, booksellers, and readers, but I could only stare at that book in my hands and think about how much had changed since that disastrous night at the gala. Harper. Isadora's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned, still tense. Our relationship had improved marginally over the past few weeks, but the coldness remained. Mrs. Vega. She stopped in front of me, her posture as elegant as always, but something different in her look. I judged you wrong. The words caught me completely off guard. What? I've seen many women over the years interested only in my son's money and position. She continued with raw honesty. I automatically assumed you were like them. I was completely wrong. I didn't know what to say, so I just waited. You make him really smile. Her voice softened in a way I'd never heard before. Emiliano hadn't smiled in years before you showed up. He was alive, but he wasn't living. And now, she paused. Thank you for giving me my son back. Tears burned in my eyes. Mrs. Vega, Isadora, she corrected gently. Call me Isadora, please. She hugged me, and for the first time, I felt like I really belonged in that world. I found Emiliano on the bookstore's private balcony, away from the crowd, looking at the lit-up city. He turned when he heard me arrive, that rare and devastating smile appearing. You did it, he said simply. We did it, I corrected, moving closer. You believed in me when I was just some crazy person who literally fell in your lap. 43 seconds that completely changed my life. He pulled me close to him. I laughed, resting my head on his chest. You're still counting that time. I'll count it forever, he promised, and then got serious. I love you, Harper. My heart stopped. What? You heard me perfectly, he smiled. I love you. Ever since you called me irritating with champagne dripping on my super expensive suit. You're still irritating, I pointed out, but I was smiling. And you love me anyway. Inexplicably. Yes, I admitted, before kissing him. 1 year later, the exhibition of my work was packed. Sarah circulated proudly, showing everyone she was the artist's best friend. Callum made jokes about how he'd predicted everything from the beginning. Isadora, now warm and welcoming, praised each illustration with genuine knowledge. And Emiliano was by my side, his hand firm on my waist, pride evident in his look. What's the title of the next book? Someone asked. I smiled. The Girl Who Fell and Stayed. Emiliano arched that eyebrow. Is that about me? About us, I corrected. Later, at home, I saw Emiliano opening a specific drawer in his desk. Inside, carefully stored, were the business card he'd given me at the bookstore that day, and a small drawing I didn't even remember making. You kept that? I asked, surprised. He looked at me with that intensity that still made my heart race. I keep everything that really matters. You're a complete sentimental disguised as a corporate iceberg. Tell anyone and I'll deny everything. He pulled me into his lap, this time on purpose. I laughed, kissing him. Your secret is completely safe with me. And as we stayed there, intertwined, I thought about how an accidental fall had turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. The little monster had finally found its place, and so had I.